Judge Frank Caprio is a viral sensation. 200 million YouTube views, headlines calling him the nicest judge in America. His Providence courtroom is packed with cameras, tourists, people hoping to witness another heartwarming dismissal. A woman enters for a routine parking violation. The audience expects mercy, maybe tears, definitely a happy ending. But she's not smiling, she's not grateful, she's furious. Judge Caprio holds up a single parking ticket, and the crowd thinks they know what's coming. Another compassionate dismissal, another feel-good moment. Then the woman shouts, "This is unfair." The judge's face hardens, an expression nobody in that room has ever seen before. What's written on the back of that parking ticket, nobody expected. In 90 seconds, silence will replace every sound in that courtroom. What happens next will divide the internet. Frank Caprio, 73 years old in January 2019, had been sitting on the Providence Municipal Court bench for over 40 years. His father was an Italian immigrant, a milkman who taught him that dignity wasn't about money. It was about how you treated people when they had nothing left to lose. That philosophy turned Caprio into something rare, a judge who went viral, not for scandal, but for compassion. Videos of him dismissing tickets for struggling single mothers, veterans, elderly people on fixed incomes. Those clips racked up hundreds of millions of views across platforms. Caught in Providence became appointment viewing. Tourists flew in just to sit in his courtroom, but Providence locals knew something the YouTube audience didn't. Judge Caprio wasn't soft. He was fair. There's a difference. He'd dismissed tickets for people who genuinely needed help, but he'd also convicted repeat offenders, fined wealthy speeders the maximum allowed, and refused to budge when someone tried to game the system. Every case got the same attention. Every parking ticket, to him, was a window into someone's life. On this particular Thursday morning, case number 3847 was scheduled. A parking violation, expired meter, $150. Standard. Happens 50 times a day in Providence. Except when Judge Caprio reviewed the stack of tickets that morning, he saw something handwritten on the back of one, and something in his gut told him this case was different. She walked into the courtroom at 10:30 a.m., stone-faced. Not nervous, not apologetic, furious. The parking ticket in question, $150, downtown Providence, issued in December 2018 in the hospital district during a snowstorm. Expired meter, standard violation. This kind of case happens constantly. Someone parks illegally near a hospital, usually in a rush, usually stressed, and the city doesn't care about the reason. It's automated enforcement, no exceptions, but her posture was all wrong. Her eyes weren't pleading, they were attacking. Judge Caprio greeted her politely, the way he greets everyone. She didn't respond. He asked why she was contesting the ticket. Her voice rose immediately. Because it's wrong. Not, "I made a mistake." Not, "Can you help me?" Just, "It's wrong." The courtroom shifted. The audience, used to seeing people cry and thank the judge, looked confused. Judge Caprio didn't react yet. He held the ticket, glanced at the handwritten note on the back. 4 sentences, cramped writing in the margins. He read it once, then twice. He looked at the woman again, and this time he saw something new. Her anger wasn't entitlement, it was grief. And grief, he knew, could look like a lot of things, including rage. Judge Caprio's reputation was built on seeing past the paperwork. Over 4 decades, he dismissed tickets for people who genuinely couldn't afford them, single mothers choosing between rent and fines, veterans dealing with PTSD, elderly people on fixed incomes. But he'd also convicted hardened repeat offenders who thought charm would save them. His philosophy, the one his father taught him, was simple. Find the truth, then find mercy if you can. This case felt different from the opening second. The woman's anger was too specific, too focused. She wasn't asking for a dismissal. She was demanding it. Judge Caprio read the front of the ticket again. Violation clear. Expired meter, Hospital District, December 18th, 2018, during a snowstorm. Then he flipped to the back. The handwritten explanation filled the margins. 4 sentences about her mother, a hospital, final hours. He read it twice. The facts lined up. Tragedy, desperation, parking enforcement that didn't care. But something in her courtroom behavior didn't match the note. People in grief usually cry or go quiet or apologize even when they don't need to. This woman wasn't doing any of that. She was attacking, and that made Judge Caprio pause. The handwritten note on the back of the ticket, paraphrased here for privacy, mentioned her mother, a hospital visit, and the final hours of a woman's life. It explained, briefly, why she'd parked illegally. Emergency admission, ICU, no time to find legal parking. Judge Caprio recognized the pattern immediately. He'd seen it 1,000 times. Tragedy plus desperation equals parking violations. Usually, he dismissed these cases on the spot, offered condolences, and moved on. The audience would applaud. The cameras would catch the moment. Everyone would leave feeling good, but something in this woman's courtroom behavior didn't match the tragedy she'd written about. She wasn't crying. She wasn't explaining. She was attacking. Judge Caprio leaned forward and asked gently, "Tell me about your mother." The woman exploded. "That's none of your business." The courtroom gasped. The cameras caught every second. The audience, used to seeing grateful defendants thank the judge through tears, looked stunned. Judge Caprio stayed calm. His voice didn't rise. "It became my business," he said, "when you wrote it here." He held up the ticket, pointed to the handwritten note on the back. This was the false certainty moment. Everyone in that courtroom, the audience, the cameras, even the clerk, thought they knew what came next. The woman would break down. She'd cry. She'd apologize for her tone, explain the grief, and the judge would dismiss the ticket with his signature compassion. But she didn't break down. She got louder. "You don't know what it's like," she shouted. And Judge Caprio, for the first time in years, didn't offer immediate mercy. He hesitated, because something about this case wasn't adding up. Judge Caprio didn't dismiss the ticket immediately, and that was unusual. His usual move in grief cases was swift compassion. Dismiss, condole, move on. But this time, he asked his clerk to pull the hospital parking records from December 2018. The clerk looked surprised, but complied. December 18th, 2018, had been a brutal day in Providence. A snowstorm had overwhelmed the hospitals, emergency rooms packed, parking lots full. The woman's car, according to the records, had been ticketed at 2:15 p.m., towed at 5 p.m. The hospital visit log showed she'd entered at 1:30 p.m. Her mother had been admitted to the ICU the same day. The timeline checked out, but Judge Caprio was still hesitating. "Why?" he asked the woman directly. "How long were you with your mother?" The woman's voice cracked. 6 hours. Judge Caprio nodded slowly. Then he said something that made the entire courtroom go silent. "Then you could have moved your car." It was the kind of statement Judge Caprio never made. The audience looked shocked. The woman's face went pale, then red. "What did you just say?" Judge Caprio repeated it calmly. "You were there for 6 hours. You had time to move the car." The woman started to respond, but before she could, another voice cut through the courtroom. "Your Honor, may I speak?" Everyone turned. A second player had entered the scene, the woman's sister standing up from the gallery, tears already streaming down her face. This was the twist, the ordinary key hidden in plain sight. It wasn't about whether the ticket was fair. It wasn't even about the money. It was about something else entirely, something the woman had written in those 4 cramped sentences, but hadn't said out loud. And her sister was about to explain it. The sister approached the bench, calmer than the defendant, but visibly shaken. Judge Caprio nodded for her to speak. She took a breath and explained. Their mother had died that night, December 18th, 2018. The woman, her sister, the defendant, had never left the hospital. She'd stayed through the final moments, holding their mother's hand as she passed. The car had been towed at 5 p.m., hours before the death. The woman didn't even know it was gone until after midnight, when she finally walked out of the hospital and found an empty parking space. The ticket arrived 2 weeks later, $150, plus $200 in towing fees. The woman paid it immediately, $350 total, plus $75 for the Uber ride home that night. Then, a month later, she contested the ticket and demanded a refund. Judge Caprio leaned forward. Why contest it after you'd already paid? The sister's voice cracked. Because she believes you should have known better. That's when the twist became clear. The woman wasn't angry about the money. She was angry that the city, Judge Caprio's city, the city he represented, had charged her for being with her dying mother. The ticket was legal, the enforcement was automated, but the cruelty of it, the cold, mechanical indifference of a system that ticketed and towed a grieving daughter's car while her mother died inside, that's what she couldn't forgive. She wasn't asking for mercy. She was demanding acknowledgement. This was the ordinary key moment. It wasn't about dismissal. It was about someone in power admitting that the system had failed her when she needed it most. Judge Caprio, 73, had seen thousands of grief cases over 40 years. He'd always dismissed them with compassion, offered condolences, and moved on. But this woman wasn't asking for compassion. She was demanding justice, and those are two different things. The legal reality was clear. The ticket was valid. The car was illegally parked. The enforcement followed protocol, but the moral reality was something else. The enforcement had been heartless. The system had charged a woman for staying with her dying mother. Judge Caprio could dismiss the ticket. He could refund the money. He could apologize. But the woman's rage suggested that none of that would be enough. She shouted again, louder this time, "This is unfair!" Judge Caprio finally responded. "You're right." The courtroom went silent. Every camera in the room focused on his face. But not for the reason you think. He set the parking ticket down on the bench, leaned forward, and looked directly at the woman. What he said next became the viral moment. 15 million views in 48 hours. "I can dismiss this ticket," he said. "I will dismiss it, but that's not what you want, is it?" The woman went quiet for the first time since she'd entered the courtroom. Judge Caprio continued. "You want someone to say, 'We were wrong to make you think about money while your mother was dying.'" The woman's eyes filled with tears, the first sign of emotion beyond anger. Her sister, standing beside her, was already crying, and the courtroom, for the first time that morning, was completely silent. Judge Caprio kept talking, his voice steady but softer now. "You're not here for $150. You're here because grief turned into rage, and you needed somewhere to put it." The woman still didn't speak. The sister nodded, tears streaming. Judge Caprio picked up the parking ticket again, held it up so the cameras could see it. "The ticket was legal," he said, "but issuing it was cruel." He picked up the phone on his bench, called the parking enforcement supervisor, and put the call on speaker in open court. Why wasn't the hospital district flagged during that storm? The supervisor, caught off guard, explained, "Automated system, no exceptions, protocol followed." Judge Caprio's response was immediate. "Then the protocol is wrong." He ordered a policy review. Hospital zones would receive grace periods during medical emergencies. Families could register at the hospital, and tickets would be automatically voided. The policy would go into effect within weeks. The woman finally spoke, but her voice had changed. It was quiet now, barely above a whisper. "She died at 9 p.m., she said. "I was holding her hand." The courtroom was silent. "The tow truck took my car at 5. I didn't know until midnight." She paused, wiping her eyes. "I had to Uber home, came back the next morning to get it. $200 towing, $150 ticket. 75 Uber." Another pause. "My mother's funeral cost $8,000, and your city wanted another $425 for letting me be with her." Judge Caprio listened. He didn't interrupt. When she finished, he said very quietly, "So yes, this is unfair. You're absolutely right." Judge Caprio dismissed the ticket in open court. He ordered a full refund, not just the $150 fine, but the $200 towing fee and the $75 Uber charge. The city would cut a check within 10 business days. The audience started to applaud, but the judge raised his hand. He wasn't finished. He addressed the courtroom, the cameras, everyone watching. "This case represents a failure," he said. "Not a legal failure, a systemic failure. We built a system that charged a grieving daughter for parking while her mother died." He announced that Providence would review all hospital zone tickets issued during family emergencies, going back 2 years. Any case involving a death, a critical admission, or end-of-life care would be voided and refunded. The woman finally cried. Not from relief, from being heard. That's what she'd wanted all along. Not the money, not even the dismissal. She wanted someone in power to admit that what happened to her was wrong. Judge Caprio's final statement to her was simple. "Your anger was justified. I'm sorry it took screaming to make us listen." The viral moment was captured in full. 15 million views in 48 hours. The comments split down the middle. Some praised Judge Caprio for his compassion and willingness to change the system. Others criticized the woman's approach, saying she should have been calmer, kinder, more respectful. But both sides missed the point. The real story wasn't about anger or mercy. It was about a system that didn't see people, only violations. Within weeks, the policy shifted. Providence Municipal Court implemented a 4-hour grace period for hospital zones during medical emergencies. Families could register at the hospital's front desk, provide their license plate number, and any ticket issued during their visit would be automatically voided. The policy spread quickly. Boston adopted it, then Hartford, then other New England cities. The woman's case became a template, but she never appeared in follow-up media. No interviews, no public statements. Her identity stayed protected by court privacy rules, but the viral video made her recognizable anyway. Her sister did one interview with a local Providence paper, and all she said was, she doesn't want to be famous for the worst day of her life. Judge Caprio used the case in speeches after that. At a judicial conference in Boston later that year, he told the story and ended with a line that became his new mantra. "Sometimes mercy means listening to anger." The parking ticket from that day, the physical object with its coffee stain and cramped handwriting, was kept in the court archives. The handwritten note on the back was preserved. 4 sentences about a mother's final hours, evidence of a system that failed and a judge who listened. The woman's identity stayed private, protected by court rules and Judge Caprio's discretion. But the viral video followed her anyway. People recognized her voice, her face, the way she'd shouted in that courtroom. "You're the woman who yelled at Judge Caprio," strangers would say. She became a symbol, either entitled or justified, depending on who was talking. The internet never decided which. Her sister revealed, months later in a private conversation that became public, that the woman struggled with how she'd handled it. She wondered if she should have been calmer, kinder, if maybe she'd gotten the same result without screaming. Judge Caprio sent her a private letter. The contents were never disclosed, but the sister mentioned it existed. The woman framed the letter. She never showed it to anyone. The transformation was complete, anger to grief to acceptance. But the parking ticket itself, that piece of paper, carried everything. It sat in the court archives, a reminder that every violation has a story. Every fine hits someone's life at a specific moment. And sometimes, the system doesn't care. That's when people scream. The woman moved away from Providence in 2021. Fresh start. No interviews. No attempts to capitalize on the viral fame. Her sister said she just wanted to be heard. In the end, she was. But the cost was becoming a spectacle. Chapter 12. 147 words. The parking ticket, the physical object, still exists. It sits in Providence Municipal Court Archives, filed under case number 3847, January 2019. The handwritten note on the back is preserved behind plastic now. 4 sentences about her mother's final hours. Judge Caprio looks at it sometimes. According to people who work with him, it reminds him that every piece of paper crossing his bench is someone's life. The woman herself is gone from Providence. The sister still lives there, but she doesn't talk about the case anymore. When asked once, years later, she said, "My sister just wanted someone to admit it was wrong, that's all." That parking ticket, $150 fine, dismissed, taught everyone who saw the video a lesson. But not everyone learned the same thing. Some saw compassion, some saw entitlement, some saw a broken system, and some saw a woman who had to scream to be heard. In the end, the story comes back to that parking ticket, the recurring object, the thing that started everything. It was ordinary once, just another violation, another piece of bureaucratic paperwork, another automated fine issued by a system that doesn't see people. But by the time Judge Caprio held it up in that courtroom, by the time the woman screamed and the cameras captured it and 15 million people watched, it had become something else. Evidence, a symbol, a reminder. The ticket is still there in the archives. The handwritten note on the back hasn't faded. 4 sentences that changed a city's policy and made a judge famous for something other than kindness. It made him famous for listening. Justice isn't just about being right, it's about being human first. That's the lesson, if there is one. But the last question remains, the one nobody can answer. Would mercy have meant more if she'd asked quietly, or did she have to scream to be heard? The parking ticket knows, but like every piece of evidence that becomes legend, it's not talking. It just sits there, waiting for the next person who needs to see it.